has this, I don't know if anyone else has said this to you, but he had this kind of expression that he would use a lot, dig it. Has anyone else told you about dig it? Probably.
Dig it is a very Ted Granger-ism.
Boy, this goes back, yeah. I'm a child of the 40s, 50s, 60s. That was a long time ago.
That's just Ted. Dig it, man, dig it.
You know, Ted and I are about the same age, and you know, when we were younger, we had different lifestyles that we worked under and abided by, and dig it was just one of those terms that everybody but Ted quit using.
I never had a dig it phase of my own life, but good for Ted. When you're cool, you're cool. I've never been cool. Ted's cool.
That gives you complete approval from Ted. If you get a dig it, you're in good shape.
You know, I can remember Ted sitting with Ted in lots of meetings, talking about kids, and meetings where there was often differences of opinion. And Ted would be the one that would be able to really find agreement. You know, sometimes those meetings would get very heated. There were people there representing lots of different points of view. You know, we should make this the priority. We should make that the priority. You know, we should, and Ted was always the one that was able to kind of weave his, you know, kind of find the consensus and find where the group really could come out together.
Early childhood stakeholders and advocates have different and competing priorities. So how do we galvanize the energy and make sure we're focused as we can be in priorities and asks? And I think without Ted being part of the fabric of early childhood advocacy in Florida, we would have lost a lot of momentum that we gained because he brought people together.
So we learned to trust him. We called him our Switzerland because he was, he was always the one that could gather other organizations to the table, and he could get everyone working together on a policy issue. The struggle seemed to diminish, and Ted was always great to help us come to a conclusion or a policy decision, and we would carry that forward. So he was just such a good person to have in that role.
And I think that's why he was so effective with legislators. They felt the same way. They knew that they had somebody in Ted that first knew what he was talking about and had the facts and the wherewithal to back it up. And two, he'd never lie to him. You know, in that process, I found out a long time ago, you only get to lie once, and then you're through. So if they ever catch you, you're out of the process. That's it.
Everybody respects Ted because he's such an honest broker, and so you know if he's telling you something that is indeed an issue that's of great importance. When he set a table, people flocked to sit at that table, understanding it was a moment and an opportunity to contribute towards something bigger than any of us in our independent organizations could ever accomplish.
Ted comes along at a very good point in building a movement with this gift of being able to work with a very diverse set of people, with understanding that this is not a program or even a series of programs, it's building a movement. It's understanding that every child should have the chance to fulfill his or her potential and opportunity.
He has been a great galvanizer and somebody who coalesces stakeholders, whether it's his work and leadership in the One Goal Summer Conference that's held every year. He's been a leader in how that's organized, how that's funded, a place and space for early childhood practitioners, advocates, state leaders to come together every summer and meet and talk about and learn together all the things that are issues facing Florida's families and children, to Children's Week and being instrumental in all of the events for many, many years that he put together, to being somebody I worked really closely shoulder to shoulder with on how we can improve public policy in the state of Florida and actually change laws that have to do with early learning systems or supports for families and children.
Good example, when we passed Healthy Families 1998. Ted and I worked hand in hand almost every day, working committees, working the floor when we could get access to members, everything that you have to do to get new legislation, and that was an absolute new way to look at child abuse in Florida, was the Healthy Families model, and we had to sell it. And Ted was there on the front line every day. Toni Jennings was then president of the Senate, and she stood up on the dais that morning and said, "We've got two things to do today. Only two things. We've got to finalize the budget and pass it, and we've got to pass Healthy Families." I recall just this wave of euphoria over myself, to the point that I never heard a presiding officer say anything like that before. And he did that not only for Healthy Families, but for, I couldn't tell you the number of really outstanding programs that Ted Granger has helped bring to the state of Florida.
The progress we've made, and we're not at the promised land, the progress we've made for early learning and children, Ted has been a central figure in helping this come to be for more than a quarter century. That's a gift, great gift to the state of Florida, great gift to this country.
He's a person, he's close to my heart.
Whenever Ted retired, I said, we have got to be able to recognize him. He is so deserving, and he's been an unsung hero for all these years. We've got to do it for Ted.
The gift and the joy of being an advocate is it's incredibly hard work, but it's also really gratifying, and when it's done with respect and integrity, then it's just a win-win, and that is Ted Granger.
When he finally, laid down his sword, it's reminiscent of the Apostle Paul, when Paul said, "I have fought the good fight, I have finished the course, I've kept the faith." That sums up Ted Granger, I think, in his ability, and his drive, and his desire to help the people in Florida that needed the help the most. That's our Ted.